education is probably not going to be the top of the list of things to protect when people come to cutting foreign aid, but I would argue really that it should be, and frankly, the sector itself has done a pretty poor job of talking about, how we've moved overall to improving education in the developing world. And two things that I would say which are important both for education but also for aid generally is why something that's so long-term and seen as a really important source of preventing, bad things to happen down the line actually is a very urgent investment today and affects us here back at home in the U.S. And just, if I'll give the sort of global education in a nutshell summary, which is that actually there's been huge progress in education globally. The Millennium Development Goals had two goals focused on education, and tens of millions of kids, because of it, have enrolled in school, in primary school over the last 10 years. It's one of the MDGs that is sort of the farthest along. Still not going to be met, all projections say, but has made huge progress. And that story is not told. That I saw, it wasn't a polling data here in the US, but it was one in Britain recently that I saw that said, people thought that, speaking to your question of perceptions, Homi, that, no progress had been made on global education. And part of that is, because to raise money, NGOs and all sorts of humanitarian organizations need to sort of sell the crisis and the problems, and we haven't figured out how to sell and raise funds for, at least if you think about charitable organizations, by talking about the successes. Those are not the flyers all of us get in the mail. It's all about starving children who are out of school, who have no clean water, etc. So on the one hand, global education has done very well for itself, for the goals that it has set out. But on the other hand, and this is where the development story is complicated and international development is complicated, and how to, sort of tell a story like Bill did with the cucumbers is something that our sector needs certainly, which is that the assumption of the MDGs was that get children in school and they will learn and they will develop skills that are important, that we absolutely know drive economic growth. There's also good data to show that, we know those skill sets, if it's a quality education, can reduce conflict risks. So these are all good things for economies overseas, but have benefits for our economic growth, for our international security. The problem is that now that we've learned along the way that assumption, while it might have been true 10 years ago, no longer holds. That just because you get kids into school, they don't necessarily learn something. So I would say there is actually a global learning crisis that we face now, and we have to find a way as people who are involved in development to describe this story to policymakers, to people, in a way that doesn't sound defeatist, but emphasizes that we are learning along the way, and we're trying to refine our approaches to be much more effective.